Oh,
Go
so
ahead,
we're
Bill.
recording now. So after you. No, after you. Oh, after you. One of the things that came up.
Incidentally, I just started recording this in case we say something smart. I can use it.
Great, good.
E equals MC squared.
All right. You were saying something else, Billy, about fiction stuff, though.
Sorry, that was the smartest thing I know. No, one of the things that I was hoping would come up but didn't was the fan reaction about this being so slow. And I'm like, a slow burn is what TV is at its finest.
Yeah.
You know, you have to anyway.
Well, let's talk about the fan reaction, because I know that was some of the stuff Justine really wanted to get into. So that'll be our theme for the moment, the fan reactions of some of the thoughts on Wanda's playing out big old fanfic. She's got her Dick Van Dyke fanfic.
Yeah, but I mean, I was sort of like picturing myself as a younger person because I came up in the 80s and I was, that generation was very much raised by television. And I can relate, like when I was not watching television, I was thinking about it and I was creating those stories in my head and like putting myself in them and doing my own fanfic. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I can picture myself in a different iteration, not knowing what I know about mental health, going through a horrible grief experience and just exploding in fan fiction, putting myself into Middle Earth so I can go live in a hobbit house.
So I was watching that TV 10 years before. And I remember, for me, it was, whatever came on, but I also remember being in my teen years wondering what would Aragorn do when I was in situations that I didn't know. And there was no internet. There was no other souls to connect with in the moment. And so you just brought your memories with you. And it was Aragorn at first. And I don't know if you guys ever read Thomas Covenant, but then it was what would Salthart Foam Follower do? But those things matter completely. Carrying with you. Totally agree. By the way, our panel's up on YouTube, guys, and it looks great. So thanks for the opportunity, Travis. It's fantastic.
Oh, awesome.
Well, what were you going to say earlier? I feel bad for...
Oh, I wasn't going to say anything nearly as smart or profound as what anybody else was going to say. I was just going to say I really hope that they don't go with just a straight up action series for Falcon and Winter Soldier. I hope that it's got some depth, because after WandaVision, I think it would be a huge letdown if we just went to a straight popcorn TV series.
It's starting to sound like it's more and more a buddy cop type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with weird genres and making it work for the MCU, because clearly WandaVision worked. Like, give me a cooking show with
Yes,
that's how we're going to introduce the X-Men, cooking shows.
Cooking with Vision.
Hey, I would watch it at this point.
Wolverine cutting steak.
Hitachi with Wolverine, just flipping eggs in the air.
That's
I mean, Anthony Mackie is a carpenter, so.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I read that.
If you're not going to do drama, then do good comedy, right?
I think we are going to have to see lots more action because of the kind of people they are.
Yeah.
And because this one is about masculine stuff. I think it's like you're doing the buddy cop. These guys who were both partners or sidekicks to Captain America. And I think we do have to see them doing a little bit of deconstruction of masculine issues.
Woo!
Yeah, talk about some gender norm confusion.
And like you said, Billy, right? Kids watching this stuff, they're getting selves out of it that they can carry with them. So if they deconstruct masculinity, believe me, people in their 20s have already deconstructed masculinity in ways my generation just didn't touch. So if Disney can just keep itself pushing this envelope, I just can't see them going back now. You got to keep moving.
One of the things Disney does so well with the Marvel Universe that DC has failed to capitalize on, I think, is with every movie or every TV show, it's the same characters, but they put them in a different genre. Film noir, tragedy in the case of WandaVision, buddy cop with Falcon Winter Soldier, detective story with Iron Man 3, I could go on an ensemble with Avengers. So it doesn't get stale. And the thing that they tried to do with the DCU is it was the same genre the entire time, and they tried to change the characters. And they changed the themes, and they changed all the things that are supposed to be the core. The engine has to be the same. It's just the body that has to change to keep you interested.
Exactly. And that's the key with fanfic, right? Is you can do AUs, you can do alternate universes, but if you take what is the heart and soul of that character and totally change it, like, you want to make Bucky Barnes a punk? Cool, that makes sense. But you got to keep some of that buck, otherwise nobody's buying it. And
so you're saying the buck stops here.
I'm mad that it wasn't mine.
Yeah.
I'm mad.
Well,
Well,
you
you
could have
pitched it
just
to him.
taken credit for the setup, but hey, whatever works.
Points for assists. People count assists.
Mm-hmm.
I really like how Disney thought outside of the box about their format in terms of, we can make a series. It doesn't have to be 10 1-hour episodes. It doesn't have to be 10 half-hour episodes. We can do 3 half-hour episodes or 4, and then we can make a 3-part hour long. I thought someone got it. What can we do now that we didn't do before? And just because I would go to the theater to watch the last 2 episodes back to back.
The first time we got the mid-credit scene was at the end of episode 7. I think that right there was the marker, the dividing point to show it's the end of the sitcoms. Now we're doing a Marvel movie for what's left.
Very cool.
Let me go through some of these other things people said to us. Jazz Beelby had asked who else was expecting Doctor Strange to show up in that post-credit scene. Can't wait to see what's next for Wanda. I gotta admit, a lot of us were wondering, will there be somebody? Wanda needs actual education in this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it said a lot about Wanda that she's trying to do it on her own, though.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment.
Also, the way that Wanda treated Agatha at the end is an interesting one for me. That did seem very cruel, to overwrite somebody's free will and to make them a completely different person. That seems like a fate worse than prison or death to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it also shows the vulnerability of someone going through grief as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like she was able to manipulate that grief
Mm-hmm.
to get to the bottom of whatever she was trying to get to the bottom of.
Oh, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's, if you wanted to do something nefarious, you get somebody when they're at their most vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
And, this isn't trying to get Wanda to get bangs. This,
Yeah, like,
which would also be a choice people make when they're grieving,
Mm-hmm.
that they then regret when they come out of it. Right?
well, that's how cults start, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
By getting bangs.
I think it's as you were saying that, I was thinking about, like, just because again I'm a grief nerd, it was interesting to watch, like, how chaotic some things are, but how intentional and planned other things were. Because you think about like the last spell that Wanda cast, or just having that conversation when Sparky died, and being intentional and talking to their children, her children, and saying, like, no, like, you will want to run, you will want to run away from this, but don't. And it's interesting. It's like you can give the advice that you cannot then take. And so there were moments where, she was saying, like, I don't know where this is coming. I don't know how to control it, when she's having like that Modern Family kind of conversation. And yet there are still like times where she is as witty as she needs to be and as calculated as she needs to be. And part of it, and it's cool, and it's nuanced, but it's like, even considering there are times, like, her different outfits were really important too in stages. It's like how cleaned up and put together she can look versus I'm in sweatpants. Is it because I'm sad, or is it because I want to be comfortable? Like, it showed a really good, like, continuum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was Sparky?
I was wrong about Sparky. I thought from the beginning that the kids had taken a real human and turned the real human into Sparky. That was my original thought.
Well,
Cold's
Sparky
going dark,
seems
dude.
suicidal. Like,
Well,
Sparky's
Sparky
trying to
definitely
get
seemed to become
electrocuted, hence
self-aware
the
and
name.
suicide.
And then, because I mean, when Agnes is first there, they're looking for the dog. I mean, even before she leans up holding the dog, I thought she killed the dog. Yes, I've been wrong. I was wrong about plenty of other things, but by gosh, my immediate thought was she killed the dog. And they go with the azaleas, like, well, that seems realistic, but I still think she killed the dog. But was it real? Was it just this magical manifestation that she wanted to draw the power? It's although at the end of that song, when she says delightedly that I killed Sparky too, I laugh at that line every single time.
She killed him in the comics, I think.
It was an android dog. So there was the dog Sparky was an android when Vision has this whole family of visions. And Tom King, I think, wrote that story.
So do you guys think that Wanda's going to come back and save Agnes? In other words, Wanda traumatized a whole bunch of people out of her own grief. And we don't know if Agnes traumatized Wanda out of her own grief. I mean, the argument was she wanted power, but I got to think that maybe they're going to bring Wanda back to this as Wanda becomes more whole, right? Because in that moment of leaving, she probably wasn't in the space to be that whole. So someone said early, we're going to find out. That is a loop they could use, right? Come back later. And
there was an interesting Chekhov's gun where she goes, "If I need you, I know where to find you."
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's true.
Maybe sometime we'll get an Agatha all along show. Well, she's 550 years old. She's got a lot of history.
Good backstory.
And a lot of suffering to discuss. Absolutely.
See, JJ Brent said special. I touched on it in there, but special effects in this episode were garbage, complete garbage, like placeholder effects. This was surprising given how strong the rest of the series were. And then, did you feel that took away from the finale? Now, I didn't, but I can get that. I rewatch old Doctor Who. You're not looking for quality special effects there. I want a rubber suit. But there's a bit about considering how strong the rest of the series was. Okay, you're taking Doctor Who special effects and the rule of these are Doctor Who special effects. I can see where, it didn't for me, but I can see where that might interfere with somebody's immersion because the wrong special effect can just screw it up.
I think of the continuum, you have the really, really strong special effects. Even looking at the original Iron Man, like that seems to be a game. Everything holds up really well. Black Panther, I think, is an example on the other end where there was a lot of really, really good special effects. And then that climactic battle was, in my opinion, something that broke immersion. And this didn't quite get there. I got to the point a few times where I'm like, they look way too smooth all of a sudden, and they don't look real. And it looks like video game cutscene graphics a little bit. But it wasn't quite enough for me to get snapped out completely. They at least moved kind of like I would expect humans to move.
I can totally see that. That's totally fair. Because, you go from this gritty, realistic, this is a very Shakespearean play. Oh, cool, press X at the right time to move through this QuickTime event type thing.
I couldn't agree more. Not that I found it distracting. I found it obligatory. And I really thought that they could have done less intense CGI, but with this idea of chaos magic, because the way they left it, it's a bad thing to have chaos. And I'm sorry, but chaos is why life is possible, right? So I really
Goldblum taught us that.
Exactly. So let's embrace that. Let's put some purple chaos Wanda bubbles floating around and doing things. Because there was some things left on the table I thought they could have done a bit more with, but they can always do that in another one.
Mike and I mentioned that something about Tony Stark had come up. Cass Teague, her 4-point thing. Tony Stark is critical to Wanda's everything. 1, her parents' death, Stark Industries mortar. 2, his creation, Ultron, caused Pietro's death. 3, Vision is Tony's creation. And then 4, Tony's sacrifice was celebrated while hers was basically ignored. Even in that bit in Spider-Man Homecoming where they do include Natasha and Captain America with Iron Man, while still heavy emphasis on Iron Man, there's not this attention to the death of the Vision.
You hit the
Vision
nail
got hosed.
head, man.
Yeah.
I love Endgame, but you don't take the girl power team and put them up against Thanos and it doesn't work. And then the one guy comes in and solves it with a clever idea. I mean, I know they needed to end Stark's arc, and I know they wanted him to be the Kambelian hero at the end. But you're right that the scene with Thanos and Vision is so much more traumatic, and the scene with Wanda and Vision is just so much more intense than the sacrifice scene for me.
When I watched Infinity War, I didn't rewatch it until it was time for Endgame. It is and it's so much easier to watch now that you see the rest of it. It's a very good movie, but it was hard and I knew how it had to end. I said it has to, with it being two-parter, it has to end with the snap. And it did, and that was hard on people. At least it wasn't too long before the next movie, although all year.
It was great because I think we were all on the same page of, we know what's going to happen. We know the logical place is the snap. Bethany didn't know what was going to happen.
Ooh.
So we were in the theater, and she's just like, what? And I'm like, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was great.
I actually like Infinity War better than Endgame. And the boldness of the ending, was stunning. I loved it.
I think of every time I get to rewatch Game of Thrones with somebody who hasn't seen it and looking at them as Oberyn Martell gets completely decimated.
Oh.
Because everybody at that point is like, he's such a good character. I love him. He's going to be the savior of, his eyes are getting pushed into his skull. I love that pain. I'm sorry.
No, I love that show almost.
Yeah, this is the show that beheaded the main character, late in the first season. It's like, don't you think you know what's going to happen to that hero, because he's going to mess with you.
Hey, I'm going to take off. Thank you so much for a fantastic.
Yeah, let's go ahead and call it. We'll be doing more of this soon.
I'll see you guys soon.
And thank you all. It's been fun.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for
hanging
Love you
out.
guys. Always a pleasure.
All right.
Take
And
care.
whoever
Good to see
watches
you all.
this fragment, I'm going to stick out there. Thank you for sticking with us or coming back, or then go, or if you didn't see the Wizard World panel, go find it on the Wizard World page and see what the heck we were talking about for the hour before this.
This has been the post show with Travis Langley and friends.
There we
Like
go.
and subscribe.
Bye.
Take care.
He's just going to hold that pose until I
Oh my god, that's amazing. I
Have
did. I
a
had a
good
second.
Saturday,
I was
guys.
like,
much love.
frozen. All right.